The serious part, Dr. Suhail in last Friday khutbah, he said the Prophet ﷺ is dead. Now his mission is up to each one of us to carry. Didn't he say that?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I have to carry the mission of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, I have to be an Abu Bakr in my sincerity, in my understanding of the Quran, in my understanding of Hadith. I have to be every day a better person than I am today, so I can hope to be like Abu Bakr. It's a project in progress. It's not something that we are today. I have to strive to be.
Okay. What is the missing stuff in ourselves to be like him?
One main difference that I know. He struggled with his nafs and conquered it. I'm still trying.
Yeah.
نفس إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي. In his case, because he was close to the Prophet, because he was able to try harder, because whatever is keeping me busy was not keeping him busy. No social media, no problem with this, that, and the other that I have to take care of. He was able to focus more and to conquer his pride, to conquer his, kibar, thinking of himself as better than other people, all his whims and desires. Today we have more food than he had. Today, every day, we eat better than he did, yet we still crave better food. That's nafs. Today, each one of us has more money. I have more equity in my house than he had all his life, yet I'm still working to get more money. That's nafs. Because he observed the Prophet ﷺ, he has a better example to follow. I have to learn that. So we're striving, we're struggling. هذا الجهاد. This is what jihad means for us, to struggle to be better tomorrow than we are today, and to be today better than we were yesterday.
Can I jump in there, please? Jalal?
Excuse me? Yes.
Jalal, can I jump in there, please? Obviously, there's merit in the reasoning, the element that is subject to this question of man's development cycle from infancy to 80, 90, 70, whatever the age, that the period of infancy through childhood is a period that man, whether boy or girl, is unconsciously learning, and more often by parental guidance than anything else.
Yes.
And the responsibility of that individual going forward and into time remains personal effort. So this subject, the psychology subject of environment and heredity, the environmental elements that impact one's development. The very simple issue of ma'ruf and munkar. I mean, a 7-year-old kid does get to know a bit about bad things, but is this idea of bad and good endowed to us by Almighty, or is that something that we pick up from 1-year-old to 2 to 3 to 4, and ultimately when adolescence kicks in, we get to be more responsible for it. Up until adolescence, responsibility perhaps even doesn't have a meaning. So those are really kickers into the discussion.
Yes, indeed. Anybody else has any comments on this particular topic before we start answering questions?
I have a suggested answer to Abu Abdullah, if I may. Abu Abdullah, I assume you don't mean Abu Bakr specifically in his person. You probably mean like a very good role model for Muslims from the history, such as Abu Bakr of Umar ibn Khattab, or any one of the honorable Sahaba. Am I correct in my assumption?
Yep.
Okay, so let's take the character, the specific figure of Abu Bakr, but we can actually use him. Abu Bakr was one of the few people who believed Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he was his message or his mission was showing to signs of success. He took a huge sacrifice at that time in believing in Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his message, and supporting him in a very difficult time at that point, where he was basically sacrificing his wealth, his status, and his life to support what he believed to be a true messenger in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is probably true to a lesser degree with the other Sahaba. However, this type of sacrifice, this type of strong belief in a cause that is not necessarily showing signs of success and victory is what is making him and the other ones such role models. Each one of us may go through a similar challenge in their life, maybe because their parents are challenging them or their environment is challenging them. But to start with, we know the message, the message of and the mission of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was successful, and it's true. So we don't have the same challenges that they have. So that's what distinguishes them from us, in my opinion.
Any other comments on this question? Because this is a very good question, and we need to understand it properly. Can you repeat your question, Abu Abdullah? You're mute. You're muted. Unmute yourself. Yes. Faddal.
Dr. Said with us,
So that's why I asked you to repeat the question. So he will be up to date with what we're saying.
How I can be like, my question was in the beginning, what is the difference between me and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Abu Bakr?
Okay.
Abu Bakr Siddiq. This is my original question. Because he says Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah, I say Shahadatu an la ilaha illallah. He fast, I fast. He pray every day 5 times, I do. Zakah, I pay zakah. He went to Hajj, I went to Hajj. What is the difference between me and him? And my wife, she told me, my question is wrong. I should ask how I can be like Sayyidina Abu Bakr.
He laughed. He didn't even hear my joke, and he's laughing.
This is what we start, Dr. Sahel, 5 minutes ago, and you can put your input on it.
طيب بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I think that's a big question and legitimate question.
Very much.
And we can add to it is that what's the difference between the Islam of Abu Bakr Siddiq and our Islam? And what's the difference between the result that was produced by that Islam and the result that is produced by this by our version of Islam? You're right. On the surface, it looks like we subscribe to the same thing and we're doing the same tasks. If we define Islam as sha'air, rituals, and halal and haram, there is no difference. There's probably the quality of prayer maybe is more khushu', more, but on the surface there is no difference. But that's not how Islam was presented to those people. Islam was presented to Abu Bakr Siddiq in a very different way than it was presented to you or to me or to any one of us. The Prophet ﷺ, when he presented this deen, there was no tasks in it. There was a commitment. He asked only for commitment, but he asked for a full commitment. the Arabs, because they mastered the Arabic language, they understood the meaning of the Shahada and the implications. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن أشهد أن محمد رسول الله was very well understood by the Arabs at that time, and was understood both by those who accepted Islam and those who rejected it. I mean, both of them, they understood what this means. You're talking about the first part of the Shahada is freeing people from any slavery, from anything that will hold them back, and devote and dedicate their life to Allah. That's the first part. And the second part, taking the Prophet as a role model and as a leader, which means joining the community or joining the movement at that time. So that's not how Islam was presented to us. So the Prophet presented it, asking people to commit to do whatever it takes, whatever the price will be. It may involve even putting your lives on the line in order to do the work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They didn't know exactly at that time what is this mission, but they committed to it. They committed to a life mission. They committed to do whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask them to do. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to happen on earth, they know that it's going to be their job, even though that was not explained yet. The first verses of Quran, they didn't have any definition or explanation of what is that mission, but yet they made that commitment. So there is a difference between someone who realized that they are committing themselves and committing their lives to a cause and to a big purpose and to Allah, and they didn't know even what Allah will ask them to do, yet they committed to do it. So that's why later on, whenever they were asked to do anything, they answered, they responded immediately. Why? Because they signed on blank paper or blank check. So later on, they were asked to pray, they prayed. They were asked to stop drinking, they stopped. They were asked to pay zakat, they did. They were asked to fast, and Ramadan in that region is not easy. Believe me, at that time, there was no air conditioning, no refrigerator, nothing. So fast the whole month, they fasted. And then they were asked to put their lives on the line, and they did. They did not hesitate. Why? Because of that original commitment. That's not how we came to Islam. We came to Islam from very different angle. We came to Islam, we were told there are a couple of things that we need to do and a couple of things that we need to avoid. And we do that because otherwise we're going to be thrown in hellfire. So people are praying almost for one reason, which is they just don't want to be punished. So they were looking for the minimum. And then this kind of Islam is not transforming individuals like it transformed Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and others. And it's not producing the similar results. Why? Because nowadays, the individual does not change when they embrace Islam. There are minor changes that happen in the individual, but not a complete transformation. Yes, a person who was drinking will stop drinking. A person who was not praying will start praying. But what impact does this have on the person? Very limited. It does not turn the individual into an agent of change as it did in the early days of Islam. There is no transformation that we saw in the Sahaba before and after Islam. A lot of time, if you want to distinguish between a practicing Muslim and non-practicing Muslim in the Muslim world, what difference do you see? Other than one is praying and one is not praying. What difference do you see in their behavior at work, in their behavior at home, in their interaction with people, in muamala? What is it they are doing fi sabilillah? You will find someone practicing but contributing nothing fi sabilillah. Basically the difference is those tasks that one of them is doing them and one is not doing them. But that's not, again, so to back to your question is, on the surface, our Islam looks exactly like the Islam of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and other companions. If you scratch the surface, you find over there, it's a true gold or jewelry. Over here, it's just you know, there is something in chemistry called electroplating. Electroplating is you take a cheap metal and you plate it with silver or with gold. But if you scratch that surface, you will find like iron, or you'll find something very cheap. So that's the difference. On the surface, they look the same, but there is no comparison. There is no comparison. The Islam that reached us went through more than 12 centuries of dictatorship and stagnation. And as I mentioned then this last Jumu'ah, big damage happened to it, starting with the fact that it was frozen. That's enough damage. The fact that our deen was frozen by the 2nd or 3rd century after Hijrah, to the point that until this time, we are completely relying on that tafsir and those fiqh. That by itself is enough damage. If you add to that, that by design, because the true Islam, the Islam of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, cannot coexist with the dynasty rule, with absolute power inherited from father to son. Well, they cannot coexist. One of them has to go. And in order for the dynasty rule to remain, Islam was tamed, was stripped from its essential elements. Anything that raises the awareness of people, anything that mobilizes people, anything that inspires people, anything that challenges that type of governance was removed from the deen. So we have a deen without a mission, without a deen without maqasid. We have a deen without, it's something that will keep people quiet. And of course, there is a lot of ideas, very bad ideas that were injected, like obey the ruler regardless of what they do. And any ruler who establishes law and order is legitimate, regardless of how oppressive or how corrupt they are. All of this has nothing to do with the original Islam, which makes justice as its top priority and its ultimate purpose. So on the surface, there is no difference between us and the companions, between our Islam and their Islam. You scratch the surface, you find over there, it's a true precious metal or gold or diamond. Over here, if you scratch the surface, you find nothing.
Dr. Suhail, correct me if I am wrong. Over the years, I understood from your lectures all the time that the message we are receiving right now is different than the message Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu received. And we have to work right now to find the message he received and to apply it at this time. And I think you talked about it last Friday khutbah, and that's what we need to do, right?
And I have no doubt about that. And I have no doubt that between our Islam and their Islam, it's only tashabuh asma. It's only on the surface. They look the same, but there was no comparison. And the proof is, look at what kind of individuals that Islam produced, what kind of community, and what change it has affected in the world. And look at this current Islam, what is it doing? It is embraced by more than 1.5 billion or about 2 billions with all the resources you can think of. So the numbers are there, the resources are there, the opportunities are there, and all of these were not there, by the way, for the prophetic community. Numbers are there, resources, the opportunity, like the opportunity we have here, to be a very impactful community, and we are missing it. We are not. We are happy that we have some mosques that are full, and we have some activities, some organizations, some conferences, and we're happy with that.
Okay, Dr. Safi, what do you think the next step to be?
I think the next step, brother, would be, first of all, to confirm that you have what it takes the same way Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had. If we were not the same, we will not be asked to do the same. So please confirm to yourself, for your own self-confidence, and to your family, that you are the same in the way that Allah created you. He will not create you less and ask you to do the same. So we have the same potential. What we need to do is tazkiyah. He learned to do tazkiyah al-nafs from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're learning tazkiyah from Dr. Suhail. He was able to conquer his nafs in true jihad al-nafs. We are still struggling with this. We still, look, the fact that we are not able to form the community that Dr. Suhail been talking about means that we are still struggling, each one of us, with his nafs. Otherwise, we would have came to him and say, look, you're asking us to come together. We submit to this. We will pledge allegiance to you in doing this, and let's do it. But the fact that each one of us still calculating means we are struggling with our nafs. And unless we recognize this, we'll not be able to win that struggle. First, you have to know that you are in that struggle. And then you have to work in order to win that struggle. This is basically where I think we have practical obstacles that we need to overcome in order to become a true community. Do you agree, Dr. Suhail?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest obstacle is the starting point, is that because we have Islam of convenience, it's hard for us to switch to Islam of commitment. It's very hard for us to accept, to make that switch of dedicating your life to Allah and to His cause and accept to have true leadership. Why? Because we have an alternative that is much more convenient. We have an alternative that is, we are used to it and very much convenient. So it's not, and without making that step, without making the step that the companions did, it's that you come and say, oh Allah, I'm all yours. Just tell me what you need to do, what you need me to do, where you need me to be. I'm your servant, I'm your soldier, I'm ولكن كونوا ربانيين, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. That spirit coming to dedicate your life to Allah and then start studying about what are the expectations, what is my job, what's my job description, and then fulfill it to the best of your ability. That's the first part. And the second part is, in the Shahada itself, there is this idea of leadership. It's not like Rasulullah is someone who's just conveying the message. No, the companions, they understood that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yes, he was receiving revelation and conveying it, but also the second part of the Shahada is taking him as a leader. And that's why when he died, when he passed away, they immediately chose successor. And even when this deen tells us, even when you are traveling, 3 of you are traveling, then they have to have a leader to agree so that things will not be chaotic. That's even 3 people traveling. So that step, it's, if you think it is optional, you're not going to do it. Why? Because you are in a comfort zone. And most of our people nowadays, they think that by practicing Islam and maybe contributing to some activities or some money here and there, and of course, following the news, a lot of people are fooling themselves. They count the hours they spend watching the details of the news and social media. They count this as activism, and they're doing something for the Ummah or for Sabilillah, even though they're just wasting their time. They're doing nothing. So most of our people, they think they are in good shape already. That's all what is needed, needs to be done, and they are doing it. To convince them to make that major shift that involves inconvenience. It's inconvenient to have a leader. It's inconvenient to have a mission. It is much more convenient to have a checklist, check boxes that I prayed today. Ramadan, inshallah, I fasted last one, I will fast the next one. So it's much more convenient to do that. So I don't expect it to be easy. I mean, that shift, even though inshallah will be pushing for it, regardless of how much resistance, and I know that there will be a lot of resistance, even though you can see it nowadays, wherever I go, people like what they hear. But there is a difference between I like what you're saying and between applying it. Yeah, I agree. That's what needs to be done. What are you waiting for? That's the difficult step. The difficult step that I know I have to cross the river and to be on the other bank. But I'm not sure. I think I'm okay staying here.
Dr. Suhail, have you ever thought about providing a raft for people so they can cross? I'm not kidding. And that raft will be to finish the book that you talked about last time.
I'm doing it, alhamdulillah, inshallah.
That's the raft. You tell them this is what it involves. It's right. It's written right here. So when they're committing to something that they can read.
Alhamdulillah, I came a long way.
Something unusual.
Yeah, I came a long way. Inshallah, pray for me to be able to finish. I try to answer the questions that people have in their mind, starting from what happened in the early history, what happened in recent history, how and why we came to this point. And I try to make the point that there is no comparison or real similarity between the original Islam, the true Islam, and the current version.
Dr. Suhail, 2 weeks ago, sister, she was with us here. I wish she's with us today. She asked a question. From her question, I felt that she's worried. You are changing the religion. I don't know if you remember that or you had same feeling.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
He is changing the religion.
She's worried about it. She's
He
worried.
is changing. I'm confirming that he is changing.
He's changing the understanding of the religion. Not
No,
Yeah.
he's changing الدين البديل, the alternative religion that replaced the original one. Yes, he's changing the religion to go back to the original.
Yeah, you're
We're
right.
not ashamed of saying this. That's what's happening.
That's a nice way to say it. It's a change in calling to go back to the original. to the root.
Yes.
And by the way, this word change, now Muslims, we became very sensitive to it. We are one of the most resistant people to change. We quickly develop a comfort zone and we don't want to change it. This deen was meant to keep always evolving. It was never meant to be frozen at any point in history or in any particular context. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he sent different messenger with different message, was he changing the deen? Yes, he was. He was changing the part of the deen that is flexible and contextual, not the aqidah, not the essence of the deen. This will not change. But we had different messengers sent to different people with different messages. Why? Because that's the nature of the deen. It has to be contextualized. Now, that was before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how can we do the same task? How can we ensure the relevance of the deen? Going from one century to another, or from one context to another. There is no new messenger is going to come with a new revelation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigned us the task to keep the deen relevant through ijtihad.
Yes.
So that we in America will develop a version that is different than the version developed in Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Africa or anywhere else. And there is nothing wrong with this. Does it mean that we're going to pray 4 times or 6 times? No, we're going to pray 5 times. We're going to fast Ramadan. The aqidah, the rituals, the things, the wudu, these will not change. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that mission of Islam, which is the heart of this deen, the maqasid, the ultimate purposes of the deen. How can we achieve them in this context?
Yes.
And that's going to be very different because the context is very different. There are problems that we face here that people do not face elsewhere. There are problems that they face that we don't have them here. And therefore, our job will be different because the context is different. So when we say we need to come up with fresh understanding of Islam, there is nothing wrong with this. That's the normal thing, that this deen has to be always fresh. How? Step number 1 is that every people, Muslims, in every context, they have to develop their own Islamic construct. Again, not because there is no new revelation, but there is new understanding that is suitable for that context. And then what? And then keep it fresh with ijtihad. There is one ijtihad in the beginning to develop. Yes, in America, we need our own fiqh. We can't import fiqh from somewhere else. I mean, we are minorities here. And this fiqh in history was developed when Muslims were majority. That's a big difference. That's one thing. And then plus there are problems that are already solved and there are new problems that were not there before. So we need fresh Islamic construct that will keep the thawabit, doesn't touch them, but will enable us to achieve the maqasid, the purposes of this deen. How can we make this society more just? How can we make this society more peaceful, more secure, more prosperous, more virtuous? Because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigned us the task to. That's the mission of Islam, of Islah. How can we perform Islah in this country? How can we take the model of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam of building and leading a community and apply it in America? And we have the opportunity to do it because this is a free country. There is nobody will interfere with you. Yet we failed. We come up with a model that is very strange. That let's gather, let's build a place called the mosque, have a Jum'ah, have some activities, have some people to manage the place, and we're good. That's not a prophetic community. Prophetic community it's a community that is mission driven. And it's a community that has true leadership. And it's a community that has true brotherhood between the people. It's a very cohesive, very disciplined community. It's very different. And we are happy with this model. We have some national organizations and some local Islamic centers. And we're satisfying our needs. There is Jumu'ah, there are some halaqa, and we're good. That's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not what He expects us to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects us, when we settle in this country or in this city or in this state or county or whatever, to make a difference. People will feel our presence, that things became much better since Muslims settled in this neighborhood or in this city. There are a number of things they contributed, number of problems they solved. That's not happening.
Otherwise, we're irrelevant.
Yeah.
And
كنتم
we
خير
are
أمة
irrelevant.
أخرجت للناس.
Exactly.
Yeah. We are not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear that we are not here to serve our own need. We are meant to lead, to guide.
Yes. For the sake of everybody, I'm going to post. I'm going to post on on WhatsApp the thawabit, my understanding of what is Islam is. I'm going to do it in Arabic and English for whoever like to take a look at it and review it. And let's compare, Dr. Suhail, because you're working on the subject. Let's hope that this will make your mission a little bit easier.
Inshallah.
Let's compare what we have. So this way, everybody will know exactly what we're talking about, will know what change is expected, and they will know what is it that they need to be working on and thinking about, and maybe they will like to contribute something.
Mm-hmm.
We all have brains. We're all ready to do research. We're all trying to contribute, but it should all come in one main area, so everybody will benefit from it. So I like for Brother Ayman, for instance, I'll post it there and he'll take it and put it wherever it's accessible to everybody, because he knows everybody. I'll put it on Brother Ayman's link.
Inshallah.
Thank you everybody very much. Do we still have to discuss anything today? I think we still have time. Go ahead.
I have one question, may I pose?
Sure.
To your knowledge, that the Prophet ﷺ and his companions get frustrated by wanting to get into the habits and minds of people who would not, at least partially, in terms of percentage of people around, respond to that goodwill mission that he was destined to bring to the society. And did he get frustrated? If he did, more than likely he handled it, of course. But do you have anything to share by way of factual information narrated?
I didn't get the question.
I mean, if I make an analogy between you and the Prophet, for example, here you are inviting people, informing people, educating people, this community, about what's good and how to go about it. And he too, at that time, started relaying a message of goodwill for the community. And was it possible that perhaps, say 500 people surrounding him, or 5 or 50, and some of those around him didn't respond as promisingly as he would desire? Did that make him frustrated, and did he get upset, and how did he handle that experience? Do you have information about that? Or
it's a very natural that any movement of change will have some core group, very solid core group, and then there are surrounding circles of people who are less and less committed. You can't. We know that the 100,000 or 120,000 people who went to Hunayn, we don't know their names. We're sure that they are not all at the same level of commitment and discipline like the first core group. So it's natural for movements to have a solid core, and then as it starts growing, it will have a different categories when it comes to the level of discipline and commitment, etc. But the successful movement will leverage all available resources. So, for example, let's say we establish a community in a mosque, and there are a solid core in the beginning, and then more and more people join. And there are people who come only in Ramadan or come in Eid, whatever. A successful movement and successful leadership will leverage those resources and make them contribute to the mission, even though they are not very committed, but they may have money, they may have skills, they may have talents, they may have connections, they may have things to contribute to the cause, and that's what Rasul ﷺ did. As the most successful leader who has ever walked on earth, he was able to leverage all available resources and take advantage of all available opportunities since Mecca, by the way. Even in Mecca, he found a system in Mecca and he took advantage of it. There is a system called Al-Jiwar, which means that if one of the prominent leader in Mecca says that this person is under my protection, nobody will touch that person. And Rasul ﷺ, when he came back from Taif, he entered under the jiwar of al-Mut'am ibn Adi or some yani. So leveraged all opportunities. His uncle was not a Muslim, yet he leveraged that protection of his uncle to advance his cause. It's amazing leadership. So it is natural for movements to not to have all people at the same level. It's a gradual as the movement expands. Wider and wider circles will be less committed, less disciplined. But the key is how you can create a vision in which everybody will have the opportunities and will be encouraged to contribute their resources, to contribute their knowledge, their skills, so that the cause will succeed or the movement will succeed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sorry for jumping on, but it seems to me like from the beginning of this conversation until now, and just if I become leadership, and I go back to like years ago, and even when we were all younger, and the concept of like, or just in general, what you're saying before I go into the concept, it's like what you're saying is like every single thing that you said or we've been discussing here, even about like rediscovering the religion. We're talking about politics. It's like all of the concepts that you're saying has to do with politics, and the politics that you were talking about, it was the job of prophets, of the followers of the prophets, and all of a sudden now it's like a monopoly controlled by silly people, so I don't say worse words, or people who are serving the Western, let's say, or things that we don't believe in. They're serving. It's like they're isolating the religion. They isolated the leaders of the religion, made them look as sufaha, let's say, in order for them to serve the people who's paying their paycheck and who's giving them to control the seat where they're sitting on. And we can see even their followers saying like, just leave politics on the side. It's like you just mentioned, just as an example, you just mentioned the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the things that he did when he first moved to Mecca. Everything that he has done, it was politics before even the religion started. So I don't know. It's like I think we need. It's like even the question that Brother Basim said that you're trying to discover a religion, and the sister who, and I recall that when she kind of like thought like you're changing the religion. I don't think you're changing the religion as much as you're trying to change the politics of the leadership of this religion. This is the way like I'm looking at it now, and maybe it will be lighter to start looking at it. Even maybe it becomes more acceptable socially to talk about it from that perspective than just this shocking people by, oh, you need to discuss. It's like, I agree with you 100% about discovering the religion, but the way that people take it, it seems to be harsher than saying changing the politics, and which is almost like similar to what you're saying, but playing with the words. I don't know, but this is my take on it, because
Suhail, would you let me answer this question, please?
Sure.
Actually, as a trained business consultant, and if I'm looking at Dr. Suhail and his community as a consultant, I would say what he's trying to do is to come out with an effective plan with certain objectives of how to influence his environment and how to get his community to be better respected in the larger community around it and to be more effective. That's basically what he's talking about. If we given it titles, Islam and Prophet and this and that, this is all to bring it closer to people's understanding. But basically, how to turn a group of people who are not effective in the present state of affairs they're in into a more effective group of people. Can we define their objectives? Can we have a business plan on how to get these objectives attained? And this is all we're talking about here.
Very well said.
Dr. Suhail.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole idea is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's like you are hired to perform a job.
Yes.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to perform a job.
Yes.
And to conduct our life in a certain way and to fulfill that job. And he sent messengers to show us how to do it. And those messengers ended and concluded with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All what I'm calling for is for people to please find out what is that job that Allah has created you for and fulfill it to the best of your ability. Don't tell me that I know it because I'm praying and I'm fasting. That's not the job that Allah has created you to do. Ala Yasir died in Mecca before they knew how to pray, before they knew about Ramadan, etc. But they made that commitment that 99% of Muslims today are not making it. They made that commitment that, oh Allah, I am committing myself and my life to do your work. Just tell me where you want me to be, what do you want me to do at any time, and I'm there and I'm going to do it. 99.9% of Muslims today are not aware of that commitment and did not make it. And yet they think they know their job and they're fulfilling it. So that's the whole thing. I mean, and if you tell me about politics, yes, we had that for a long time, that our problem is those political leaders and political governments and regimes. But when we came to this country, we were very much exposed because we didn't have anybody oppressing us here. Nobody is preventing us from doing, and yet we failed. Maybe we did better job than Muslims in under oppressive regimes, but we were not even close to the prophetic community and to fulfilling that mission or that job. we established mosques, and we are happy with our facilities and with the activities that we're organizing. And but that doesn't come even close, nowhere close to what we are expected to do. So that's the whole idea: is people please put some effort to find out what is it that this deen is about, what commitment, and honor that commitment, and forget about the deen that you inherited from your forefathers, because that understanding was frozen for centuries and reached us through centuries of dictatorship and stagnation, and therefore it was mutilated, completely twisted, and only the elements that the dictators are happy with that remained in Islam. Everything else was removed.
I think we have 2 more minutes before we reach 1 o'clock. Last time, I need to mention to you all that last time when Dr. Suhail wasn't here, we talked about turning this meeting into in-person in the mosque. Are you still, is there anybody here that still remember this? Do you still want to do it? We said September we will move back to the mosque. We still keep the video on, so those who cannot come can still watch, but we need to meet in person in order to make those objectives that Dr. Suhail is talking about reality. We need to see each other and talk with each other face to face and person to person. Are you still interested? I need to hear from you.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Anybody else?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I would be interested. I can do maybe
A poll.
for me once once a month, maybe the last Sunday of every month or something like that, or third Sunday of every month.
Dr. Suhail, what do you think?
Well, I'm okay if we're gonna meet in the mosque. We probably need to start like around 11:30, because then I have an appointment at 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. But are you for the idea of meeting face to face?
I mean, if people are willing, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to rush it because people have to be aware of it. But maybe let's wait. Let's continue next week online, and then we see when do we start it.
Okay.
Okay.
جزاكم الله كل خير. And see you next Sunday إن شاء الله. السلام عليكم.
مع السلامة.